welcome at the public part of a conference that we had for the last 2 days on national museums and their role in, not their role, in stable civil societies. Tonight we're going to look at a case study, the case study of Afghanistan. And my name is Parthesius. We just had a discussion here on the stage because we had 2 days of very intense discussions about the role of national museums, the past of national museums, the future of national museums. And we had a kind of a division of roles here on the podium to speak about certain aspects of Afghanistan and then have a discussion with the others. But everybody got so inspired that they're all now fighting over the time that they can spend on presenting. So let me start again. My name is Parthesius. I'm a visiting professor here at NYU Abu Dhabi, but I'm also director of the Center for International Heritage Activities, an organization, an NGO, that organizes international heritage cooperation worldwide. We working in most of the continents. Myself, I have a background in museum and in heritage, maritime archaeologist, but been museum curator for a long time, and now also work in Afghanistan, so no water to be seen. In all those years, I learned about culture that it is not a thing, but it is something that people are making. It's man-made, and especially for museums, people are making museums. They decide what kind of stuff they collect, what kind of stories they're going to tell with that collection, which things they throw away, which stories they don't tell. So basically what they exclude and include in the narrative. And the discussions about National Museum was part of that. Were 2 intense days, and I think for a lot of the participants we are now so confused about even what a museum is and what national is. But as one of our colleagues from Kenya, Mauritius, said, we have something to think about, and that we certainly have. NYU is an appropriate place to have these discussions because as a liberal arts college, we hope in the years to come to train hundreds and maybe thousands of professionals and scholars that go out in this world. We have a global network university, go out in this world and actually start that whole process of thinking and shaping up their narrative of their communities. It's also the place for debate. We had that for the last 2 days, and more appropriate also in the context of this wonderful museum island with the vision of the leadership from here to use culture as a global connector, to use it as a tool for uniting people, making connections. But we all know that if you have a tool for connecting people, you also have a weapon to disconnect people. And I think that's the other side of culture as a weapon. Probably the best example that we still have in our minds is the blasting of the Buddhas in Bamiyan. But there are, sadly enough, a lot of other examples of how culture and education are used actually as weapons against other people, to exclude other people. And I don't know if everybody heard the news now, but I just saw the very sad news what happened in Pakistan with the killing of so many school kids. I think that's another sad example of that. Tonight, we're going to use Afghanistan as a case study. We got involved as an organization, but during the discussions, I will say more about it. I'd like to introduce to you Susanne Anne. She's the director of the Art and Exhibition Hall in Germany, director of exhibitions of the Art and Exhibition Hall, responsible for many beautiful exhibitions, but that's not the capacity she's in here. She's here in the capacity of advisor to the Ministry of Culture in Afghanistan, and for me, even more important, as a coach, trainer, expert in museums that helped the museum in building their capacity and actually start the thinking process of how the National Museum of Afghanistan can play a role in creating unity in Afghanistan again. And well, the question mark on this presentation was, is it peace broker or peace breaker? And I hope that will be come out of the discussions after the presentations. I hand over the floor to Susanne. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome everybody. It's nice to see you here. And first of all, let me thank the organizers of this evening to hosting us tonight and for giving us the possibility to talk about the National Museum of Afghanistan. The first speaker tonight is Omar Sultan. Mr. Sultan was the former deputy minister of the Ministry of Information and Culture from 2005 up to 2011, and he's still involved in the country now as an advisor as well to two ministries, to the Ministry of Information and Culture and to the Ministry of Mines. That has to do with the huge excavation site, Mes Aynak, and he's connecting the two ministries. They have to work together on the excavation and the mining. And you will talk a little bit about the culture in general in Afghanistan and the achievements the last years.
First of all, I would like to thank the NYU Abu Dhabi for organizing this event, this seminar. I would like to thank the C, especially Mr. Robert. And I would like to thank also as well the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Netherlands. I have been talked in a lot of talks and everywhere, so giving seminars. We all know that what Afghanistan has had in the last 30 years or more than that. But recently, that after all these 30 years of aggression and warfare has returned to normal life. The result of these dreadful 30 years of war have seemingly left unpleasant effects. At this stage, our transition from the culture of war to culture of peace in fostering fraternity and cordiality in promoting the spirit of forgiveness, we have taken great strides. The Ministry of Information and Culture, Tourism, Youth has been trying to popularize these principles through holding of culture gatherings, culture seminar, concerts, and even Sufism, ceremonies for Sufism, through radio, television, and popularize these thoughts. The psychological effect of such culture services is not only alleviated various psychological effects, but such culture services not only the attitude, but also help in the development of culture of toleration. We should continue these kind of activities for a long time to rid the society, to get rid the society from the effect of the 30 years of war. Attention to art and culture activities will help a lot in this direction. Arts and artists during these 30 years of war, especially with the government of Taliban, were gravely inflicted toward of destruction. Today, we need to revive of arts. We have worked in this direction for almost 12 years. But our publicity of possibility has been extremely limited. For instance, right now, most of section of Afghanistan folkloric music, which are the remnant of artistic progress in past centuries, it is about to disappear. So we have to go and train them. We have to show them that we have to save these traditions. Similarly, in the areas of art, calligraphy, handicrafts, painting, etc., were development in Afghanistan for many centuries. Our new generation has raised its head from the flames of war, and we are doing our utmost to alleviate the effect of war, brutality, and hatred. The situation in Afghanistan, I guess, where Afghanistan has been saturated, it has always been in the history. It was the crossroads of cultures. We have the Greeks, we have the Achaemenids, we have the Romans, we have the Indian. So the Silk Road, that it was always, all these culture or different culture has been passed through Afghanistan. I would like to also say that when I first went to Afghanistan, it was 2002. 2004, we went to the vault of bank in Kabul. And I saw I was surprised. I saw some cases that it said Telatapa. And then, of course, the National Geographic came and helped us to find that one. And then all of these things that has been saved in Afghanistan. We have some heroes in the museum, and you're seeing one who's sitting next to me. He is the one who saved everything. They didn't tell to anybody. It was in the vault, and they saved it. And I would like to give you a hand. Why I am trying to go ahead and then promote the culture. His Excellency, he was also before in Afghanistan, and I was grown up in Afghanistan. Culture had a very important role to unite the people. So I guess this is what we have to promote, and we have to go and do it. But, of course, as I said, it is limited. The other thing is the Afghan people in the last 30 years or 35 years, they have lost their identity. In order to get them back that identity, it is through culture and it's through united Afghanistan. Awareness of culture of Afghanistan. That's why we are promoting that. Robert and everybody. UNESCO, of course, has helped us on this. But I have a friend of mine just sitting right there at the back, Dr. Laura Tedesco. She worked with us in Afghanistan as a cultural heritage person for the United States Embassy. She was always giving me ideas that in helping me to go and do this or to go in projects and this, all of these. One day she sent me via email a virtual museum, and I got that idea, and I will show you at the end in about 2 minutes. It's not too long. But I believe if we support to build museum and support museum, it is in the provinces of Afghanistan. It has an effect. First of all the Afghans beside Kabul will be proud, because Kabul is not only Afghanistan. During these days, we're going to go in, UNESCO and Koreans has been actually helped us to go and build a museum in Bamiyan. Only not that they will be only proud, that they will have, that they are the honor of these things. But the kids who goes to the museum, the awareness of their culture, we have already started, and we are telling them, this does not belong to the government, it is yours. Even that, if we're going to go and promote that and we will work together, it is going to stop the looting. Because then the people will feel, oh, this is mine. I'm not going to go and let anybody to loot my cultural heritage. So beside the identity, it's they're going to go and they're going to be actually educated. I think education is playing a very important role in Afghanistan. All the youth of Afghanistan, and I'm proud of that. I have a young creator sitting with us. And I was surprised when he had this talk today. So it makes me proud. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I'm not going to go and talk because there's Mr. Masoodi is going to go and talk a lot about the Kabul Museum. Brandon Caesar, our friend from UNESCO, is going to talk, and then of course the young curator from the museum is going to go and talk. All I am going to go and show this video, it is the Mes Aynak. Mes Aynak is very, very important in Afghanistan. I'm also in charge of that excavation for that. So, as I said, Laura gave me this idea. I asked the French to go ahead and put it together. This is one side of Mes Aynak. So you see that excavation is right there. So virtual museum. Because I hope it's not going to be destroyed, but if it is destroyed, then we will have an idea what it was. When you see a stupa, and then, of course, sitting Buddhas. The head was stolen when we start the excavation. It's very small, but they'll just give you. This is how the French did it. With all these air drones, yeah.
I think that is one of the problems with the heritage in Afghanistan. There is so much heritage, and the connection with all that heritage in the world is so big that how to make it accessible in a war-torn country and to educate your youth. That's really one of the challenges of the last year, to make the museum again accessible and starting an educational program for the youth.
Yeah, we have a plan that actually I'm hoping the World Bank is going to go and say, okay, go ahead and do it. It is also an exhibition for education, models of this, 3Ds of this, and then invite all these people, kids and Afghans, that this is your culture heritage, and then talk, just tell them. There's another piece, so the 3D numerisation of Mes Aynak. And I'm hoping, because it's a very huge site. We have already almost finished the excavation site, like 90%, but we have to remove all of these artifacts from there.
It's such an important site, such an important site. I just want to make one comment, if
Yeah.
a little bit like that. I know with time, but it's just that there's been a lot of media about this site, and much of it not very well informed. The thing is that, this area is very rich in copper, which is why this site exists.
Exactly.
And part of the balance of developing state, developing nation as Afghanistan, and part of the balance and things that have to be weighed up and decided is, concerning mining in that site, the reason it's excavated and the reason that His Excellency Mr. Sultan can show you those images is because of the copper mine. So this is why there's been a lot of not well understood about that one does not come without the other. That what Mr. Sultan showed you, that excavation, so much excavation, maybe one of the biggest archaeological excavations ongoing in the world today. That of course needs to be funded by some mechanism. So.
Thank you for your comment, and thank you very much for listening. I think I'm going to go and give the floor back to you. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Umar Sultan said it already, is Mr. Masoodi. Mr. Masoodi is the General Director of the National Museum, but not only of the National Museum, as well the provincial museums are under his authority. And Umar Sultan mentioned it already. He was all these difficult years, he was in the country and he protected the collection of the National Museum. And this is the reason why this is still such a rich collection as it is.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. I hope, good evening. I hope this will be not my PowerPoint presentation, boring for you. I have to just a short discussion about the history of the National Museum, what happened during the 3-decade wars. You know, war is war, always they damage the cultural heritage. We know about the negative effects of war, about the cultural heritage of Afghanistan, especially the National Museum of Afghanistan. The title was that, usually it is completely clear, the museums will bring peace in a country. It is very, very important for us. There are small sentences, a nation stays alive when its culture stays alive. This is a general view of the National Museum of Afghanistan before the destruction. National Museum of Afghanistan is an archaeological museum which is established in 1919 during the King Amanullah Khan that we got our freedom. In the same year, he established this museum. The artifacts we collected that time was handicraft, manuscript, the flag of jihad, some historical documentation, and also in 1922, the government of Afghanistan signed a protocol agreement with the French government. The French archaeologists came to Afghanistan to start the survey and also excavation in Afghanistan. Since from 1923, when they start this excavation in Afghanistan by the cooperation of the National Museum of Afghanistan, the artifacts which they got it, they gave it to the National Museum. From the same year, the face of the National Museum changed from ethnographic section to the archaeological. In this case, we say National Museum of Afghanistan is archaeological museum. Besides that, we have a department of ethnography, which is, we have a rich collection from that ethnography collection also in our museum. When you saw this building is too small, it's not quite enough for the National Museum. Unfortunately, this museum was damaged during the war, especially the Civil War, which was started from the end of 1992 up to end of 1994. The museum is located a little bit far away from the center of the city, which is located in the western part. We lost 70% of our artifacts during the Civil War. It's mean more than 70,000 pieces was looted from the National Museum. All of you know the civilization, ancient civilization of Afghanistan, about our museum. Unfortunately, by the effects of rocket, in May 1993, the building took fire. In this slide, you can see how much damage this museum. There is no roof, there is no window, there is no doors. You can't imagine how many the artifacts will remain or not. It was a big tragedy. You can see the situation of this museum. This is a big tragedy, unfortunately. This is the collection, our museology department, and also some storage. All the artifacts is damaged, and also, unfortunately, we lost most of our documentation also. In November 1994, with the representative of UN office and came to Afghanistan, His Excellency Missouri Situris, he went to the museum. He saw in what condition the museum, in this storage you can see the cabinet of numismatic. We had a huge collection of numismatic, more than 40,000 kinds we have. Unfortunately, when he saw this with the museum staff, there was no single kinds that was written. All of them was looted. This is the catalog of art which took fire, except of 2,000, which a part of it remain. You can see the data sheet of the artifacts. In 1995, I am very happy by the cooperation of some foreign countries like Greece, like Italian, French, and also by this directly cooperation of Nancy H. Dupré and also Greece government. We established an association by the name of SPACH, Society for the Preservation of Cultural Heritage of Afghanistan. We start the very simple inventory of the remain pieces, which was started in 1990, beginning of 1995 up to 2000. In this slide, you can see the museum people, they register the remain pieces from the Civil War. You can see there is no light, there is no electricity. We are working in the storage in front of lamp. The main purpose of our inventory was that too, from the remain pieces, we have to ship the masterpieces to the center of the city, because still there was a lot of rocket come into the Kabul city. Situation was very bad. Finally, before the Taliban took power, we transferred more than 3,500 pieces to the Kabul Hotel in the center of the city. In this slide, you can see the transformation of the artifacts. And also, I am very happy by the cooperation of Greece government. We put the metallic doors in front of all the storage. At least it was under control, under our control. You can see the metallic doors also. This is also a general view of the new facilities for the National Museum of Afghanistan. In 2002, our ministry, by the close cooperation of UNESCO, we organized an international seminar in Kabul. More than 100 expert people come. They deeply discuss about the challenges that we have generally in Afghanistan about the cultural heritage. When these people come to visit the Damages Museum of Afghanistan, or National Museum of Afghanistan, they pay attention too much for rehabilitation of the National Museum. I'm very happy. We got some financial support from the Greece government, from the United States, from UNESCO, and also from Italian government, which they donated, they help us for rehabilitation of the National Museum of Afghanistan. We started this in the beginning of 2003. It was finished in September 2004. In this slide, you can see the sign of the National Museum, the rehabilitation of the building, and also I'm very happy we got some financial support from the government of Netherlands. I'm very happy from the Sea Association. Some expert people come from security reason to protect the National Museum, which is an historical monument, is not built for the museum purpose. In this slide, you can see they put steel bar and also glass brick from inside the storage, all the storage which is located in the first floor, and also financially there is support for protection. This isolation work which was done by the Sea Association. In this slide, you can see the entrance door of the National Museum, the damage, and also after reconstruction. You can see the same destruction of the one saloon, when we call the Nuristani exhibition. On the left side, you can see after rehabilitation, we were able to organize the first exhibition by the name of Nuristani collection in December 2004. And also, we try our best to improve our gallery. And this was, some work was done at the National Museum of Afghanistan. Maybe all of you know, in the beginning of 2001, the Taliban regime destroyed some pieces in our National Museum. In this picture, you can see the famous artifacts, which we called it, probably the statue of Kanishka, who was the big emperor of Kushanid period. It was damaged, but by the museum staff, with the cooperation of historians from Gimit Museum in Paris, they came to in 2003. They joined these pieces to each other, and after repairing, we put it in display. This is unique pieces of the Bodhisattva from Tape Maranjan, which was made of clay. It was also damaged. My staff working, and also after repairing, we put it in display. This is also some artifacts, just an example. As His Excellency Mr. Omar Sultan mentioned, the illegal excavation is a serious problem, not only in Afghanistan, but all in the region. In this slide, you can see this head of Buddha, which was by illegal excavation in 2003. It was, the looters want to loot it, but the security section, they arrest it, and also they hand over to the National Museum of Afghanistan. In this case, when His Excellency Omar Sultan mentioned the hidden treasure of Afghanistan, or the treasure of Tilla Tepe artifacts, We start the inventory of these pieces in 2004 by the cooperation of National Geographic. This is a little bit of story behind of that. Maybe all of you know when in 1988, when the Soviet Union forces left Afghanistan, that time everybody think that political change will come. We, the museum people, think how to protect the National Museum artifacts, which was safe up to that time. The idea which come in our mind after deeply discussion, when the political changes come, maybe there will be political gain. By this reason, we share this idea to transfer their masterpieces, the most important pieces, just for safeguarding to the center of the city. This idea was accepted by the president, our ministry. We shifted the masterpieces from different ancient sites to the center of the city. We stored it in two places, in the presidential palace and also at the Ministry of Information and Culture. We start the inventory of this procedure in April 2004. In this picture you can see a higher delegation with Siryanidi, who is a Russian archaeologist. He himself, he excavated these artifacts. We opened the boxes, we put it as an inventory procedure, the Bactrian treasure, and the committee was responsible for registration of these pieces. The current inventory, in this slide you can see, I am very happy. In 2012, we signed a protocol agreement with the Oriental Institute of Chicago University. They financially support, technically support this idea to make the database for the National Museum of Afghanistan. I am very happy. This protocol agreement will be for 3 years. Up to now, we put more than 85% artifacts in data. We computerize all the artifacts. We put the data sheet in national and international language, in English. All the necessary information, we put it in the data sheet. This is very easy to have this documentation. In future, we can easily save this soft copy and also hard copy of them. This will be a scientific work which is started. It will be finished after 5 months later. Our staff is working. This is a good opportunity for my staff to get training and also improve their knowledge. Within these 10 years, always I try my best by the cooperation of UNESCO for improving of the capacity building my staff. 3 decade war is, more than 3 decades is a very long time. There is a big gap. The young generation, we people, we need more information. We have to get training for these activities. Within these 10 years, we organized more than 24 workshops, which was held by UNESCO, by other foreign countries like Japan, like British Museum, Italian, and also French experts with the cooperation of the expert people from United States. This is also a good opportunity for us. In each year, we make a plan to have new exhibition. This is in 2013. We organize a new exhibition at the National Museum. This is the ribbon cut by the, as you can see, previous ambassador of the United States or the Minister of Information and Culture for this. This you can see. This is the 1000 city of Bactria, which was financially supported by the Sea Association in 2013. You can see the artifacts in display. You can compare the progresses of our work with the previous damages building of the National Museum. With His Excellency Omar Sultan mentioned about the Mes Aynak site. Exactly, it's a huge ancient site, the artifacts which was excavated by the Institute of Archaeology since from 2009 up to now. The immovable artifacts, they gave it to the National Museum. In 2011, we make a special exhibition room by the name of Mes Aynak. You can see the artifacts in that exhibition. This is also, usually we, in 2013, we also organize a Ghazni exhibition room, which is most of these Islamic artifacts. This is the ethnographic exhibition hall. This is the new facilities we started 2 years before. This is a part of the new building. We want to have a new building for the National Museum of Afghanistan because the current building is very small. It will be not enough for our future activities. I am very happy the US government support this idea. So we make a 2 entrance door, the surrounding wall. The inauguration was in December 2013 at the National Museum. And also now we were able to celebrate the National Icon Days. Usually consistently we celebrated the Diversity Day at the National Museum of Afghanistan. This slide shows the exhibition of Bactrian treasure. In October 2006, we signed a protocol agreement to these artifacts have to go to France for international exhibition. Before we send these artifacts over there, we organize a temporary exhibition at the Presidential Palace to show it first for the Afghanistan people. We invite most of the people just for 1 day. They saw this exhibition in the Presidential Palace. After that, we send it to the French for international exhibition. It was now in Australia, in 10 countries, we show this exhibition. The role of this exhibition, not only for us to how to introduce our ancient civilization, our artifacts, they make a link of the National Museum with the very famous museum all over the world, especially in this 10th country we have this exhibition, like France, Italy, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, and also United States, Canada. Now it's in Australia. I hope in future it will come to Russia also. This is some masterpieces that we were able to protect them, to save them during the Civil War. It was a very difficult time. One glass from Bagram, the other is from golden treasure or Bactrian treasure. In this slide, you can see our previous president, His Excellency Hamid Karzai, which was this exhibition was in British Museum. Himself, he came and visited this exhibition in British Museum. This also, the exhibition of Afghanistan is different countries, especially in Sweden and also in Australia. For save the time, I will not give more information. And also this part I will remain to my friend Mr. Noor. This also some people come visit, the high-level people, they visit our museum. The school children coming consistently to visit the National Museum. If we compare with 10 years before, now you can see a lot of change at the National Museum activities. I'm optimistic for future. This is the landscape of the museum, which was supported by the Greece financial support. This project was run by UNESCO office in Kabul to control the dust from the should not come for the inside the museum. Unfortunately, we have the problem with the dust in Afghanistan. This is, sorry. Thank you for all of you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's always, again, impressive to see how people get through such a time of destruction and war and make the decision with the risk of own life to bring such a collection in safety, and then later on have the guts and the energy again to put it back in your own museum, but also let it travel the world. And what I actually find very important in this story is that it's not as much the collection, although it's beautiful and important for world culture. It is also the space that is created for young people to be trained. And the head curator now, Noor, is one of the best examples, I would say. Together with the team around him, we have a curator at this moment studying in the US. There is a big team of other curators around us. There's a big team of young professionals that actually will probably do exactly the same if, I hope it will never happen, but if this collection is under danger again, they will do exactly the same. It's like intangible heritage. It's actually the structure of what culture, what culture makes culture. just briefly about why we got involved in Afghanistan. We, as Center for International Heritage Activities, C Association, we were actually working in coastal areas, and just after the Taliban was kicked out, if I may say so, the relationship between my team that was working in Sri Lanka and in Kabul happened because we got from the Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands, we got showcases. And at that moment, one of our team members, Roelof Munneke, he had in close contact with you. He said, why don't we send those showcases that we got from the Rijksmuseum for Sri Lanka? We had too many showcases, we sent them to Kabul. And then we got a huge enterprise of people supporting us to get those showcases to Kabul. And what happened when we came to Kabul, we find out that the rest of the world was also helping the National Museum with showcases. So I remember sitting in Dr. Masoudi's office, and there was a lot of shade because there were more containers standing outside of the museum with support. And that was great because that meant that it really captured the world's attention. But working along and having experience with setting up capacity building programs, but also capacity building programs that are based on mutual understanding of where you're going, not like we are an expert, we're going to tell you how to do this. And so with the generous support from the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we were able to set up a program that was actually designed for 3 or 4 years. And actually this is our 8th year that we are being able to support the National Museum and the young team of curators to get their training. For us, it's always very important to realize what kind of place we have in such a cooperation. After me, I think Brendan from UNESCO will speak, and he will elaborate on what it is to be really on the international level and to get into a country and support this country as an international intergovernmental state. For a small NGO, we are always trying to find the local perspectives that we can support, because if the whole world helps, then you should find some really small pathways in what you can do with a small organization, and well, in this case, generous funding, but relatively within the grand scheme of things. And one of the things that we discussed, and that is, I think, important to mention in the process of why a national museum and why culture can play an important role in keeping peace in a country and unify a country, is that one of the questions we got was, we have the National Museum, that's getting along very well with the support of so many people, but we also feel, that are the words of Dr. Masoudi, that if we really want to unite this country, that rich heritage that is all over this country should actually get a place in a network of regional national museums. And in order to do that, you should at least cater for the identity of those regions. And we were, well, allocated is not the right word, but we were asked to go to a place in the north, Tashkurgan, and help to build up what was meant to be the ethnographic museum of several provinces in the north. For us, that was, well, where to start. And I remember that we had to start with a local partner, because organizing an international project is not that easy. So we started with a local partner, and the first step was that we would consult the local community what they want to do, what they wanted to do with the museum. And for me, it was a big eye-opener to find out that after the long process of discussions, they didn't want to start with the building, they wanted to start with the garden. And imagine, from a Western perspective, you start with the building, then you make sure that you can house the collection, and then you do the landscaping. That's what you normally do. And here, they actually proposed us to start with the landscaping. And yeah, that was what we designed it. They can drive their own program. So they made a proposal, and the community was sent to Kabul, or they could go to Kabul to defend their project. And I still remember that since were paying for that mission, I saw on the list a public toilet specialist and a public toilet manager. And I thought, wow, these are two clever guys that organized themselves a trip to Kabul. But our Afghani partner said, actually quite upset about it. I was making a joke about it. And he said, no, no, no. These are the two most important people on the list. Because what was the reason to start with the garden was that they want to actually create their own center of heritage again, their own heritage locations again. The museum is fine, but what they first of all wanted to do was a place that they could come together again and where they can enjoy their own culture. And picnicking is one of the best ways of sharing your culture in Afghanistan and in many regions of this region. So I'm going to end. I warned everybody that I talk a lot, but I just want to make my point here. I think Afghanistan and the program of Afghanistan is an excellent example that we could work on so many layers. We could work on a very local level with the community and let them express what kind of heritage they want to develop, and that's still in process. Dr. Masudi and Omar Sultan were responsible for the national level to make sure that their national heritage would become a tool for rebuilding the country. And I guess UNESCO has another responsibility, and maybe that's a good moment to hand it over to you and Brendan.
To Brendan Kassar. Brendan Kassar is the head of the culture unit in Doha. But before he moved here, and that was only recently, he was for 10 years in the country, based in the country, and he was the head of UNESCO unit in Kabul.
I went to Kabul in 2003 and had the privilege and honor to work with both Mr. Masudi and Mr. Sultan over these years. I went actually on an AusAid-funded project, which was for people to the Australian government would, I'm an Australian citizen, so the Australian government would help in capacity building by funding the position, funding the housing and other sorts of infrastructure for an individual to be able to go and volunteer in different countries all over the world. So I went for 1 year to Afghanistan in 2003 and then didn't leave until 2014. So long after the first year of volunteering finished, and I had the privilege of working with Mrs. Nancy Dupree as well in the Society for the Preservation of Afghanistan's Cultural Heritage, which is the organisation I went to work for, and then later on moved to UNESCO, where I'm still working. I try not to also talk long. I have that problem as well. But I just try to add a sort of different perspective in terms of this conference, in terms of the discussions that have been going on. One has to understand, I think, that heritage safeguarding and other activities, the notion of development of cultural spaces in Afghanistan, if we want to call it that, or museums and other sorts of cultural infrastructure and cultural spaces. This takes place within a development context. I don't need to go through all of the issues and challenges that the country faces, but of course in areas of education, in areas of security, in areas of healthcare, access. It's a vast country, and many parts of the country geographically are isolated for many times of the year in the Hindu Kush. It's quite, these are great challenges for all basic sorts of issues, including infrastructure development. So that's the development context, and each of those issues could be considered, a great challenge and a threat to also stability. And this is the context when we think about heritage. Heritage is one issue within these many other issues in a sort of competing space of importance, and we have to try and argue and debate and advocate continually in order to get heritage addressed as an important issue within the international context. And in that international context, the various documents, agreements, and Bonn, London, Tokyo, etc., all of these agreements didn't necessarily address culture as a pillar of development. So in that sense, it makes it quite, again, when you're talking about all of the issues that need to be addressed in a country, and heritage being only one, but that heritage is not necessarily recognised at the international level. And that's the context in which you're trying to advocate for the development of museums and other things. That's the complexity of it. Even the national priority program of the Afghan government didn't address culture as one of the pillars, and I hope that that will change in the coming years, and therefore to enable also the international community to support even more. But on the other hand, there's been a lot of support and a lot of achievement, as Mr. Masoodi detailed very clearly. So this is the challenge for us, to enhance or to argue for the relevance of culture, and one of the things, one of the methods, one of the ways, and one of the reasons, it's about peace building and nation building. I know we discussed for 2 days unpacking national identities, nationalisms, the idea of a national museum, but in the sense of when you're in this type of situation, in this post-conflict and critical situation for people, it's a luxury really to unpack it, because you really just need to address emergency and immediate needs in terms of the heritage. A museum collection that's scattered all over the floor of the burnt-out building. You can't afford to stop and talk about that issue, about those types of issues at that time. And hopefully in the coming years then Afghanistan can also address these things. So culture and museums and other things have been put lower on the agenda, and so our challenge is then to demonstrate in some way the added value in that peace building context and job creation, and that was one of the methods that we were always trying to do in the UNESCO office in Kabul. It was to demonstrate that you can create jobs and economic opportunities in keeping craft skills alive through conservation of monuments and so on and so forth. So they're the main points I wanted to make, actually, and I've got a couple of other notes I wanted to say. That what we tried to do in regard to cultural spaces was adaptive reuse of buildings. And this was one method to address 2 things, which was that your monuments are in danger of collapse and disappearing, and so trying to save them on one hand, but then also trying to find other functions for them so that they could become more relevant in the community. And this is what Robert was exactly talking about, and it's that kind of approach which I think is a good approach for Afghanistan, especially in that context of monuments that are falling down through various means of conflict and other issues, that urban development and urban growth, which very much is putting pressure on historical buildings, traditional architecture, and so on and so forth. That's one thing I wanted to mention about the adaptive reuse, and also the a new cultural centre that's going to be built. This slide really goes to what I've just been talking about, and trying to say that within that context, the international standards and agreed by all of the member states of UNESCO, the notion is that we should try and work for culture towards intercultural dialogue, through intercultural dialogue, to foster a culture of peace and non-violence, and our engagement in conservation and museum development, cultural centre, intangible heritage, music, etc. These factors all should fit within that umbrella, and that's the whole objective and purpose. I put a few slides here of different sorts of buildings. That's the Gahashad Mausoleum in Herat, which is a building which is being conserved in a UNESCO project, and hopefully, as this slide tries to demonstrate, encouraging those local skills that are still there, and in terms of the timber, putting the timber back into the building, and encouraging the maintenance of the tradition. Mausoleum of Abdul Razak in Ghazni was another building we worked on with the Ministry of Information and Culture. This building was damaged after it was renovated, restored in the 1960s, and then again suffered from damage. And this is a project which has been completed, and the idea was to have it as a museum of Islamic art. The building there is there. The garden has been also rehabilitated, and we hope that if it cannot house, it's right at the moment not housing a collection, but the building is there and could be used for other purposes as well. That might be in line with the Department of Museums or indeed Fine Arts or other departments within the Ministry of Culture. It can have another function if people so wish. This is an example of how you try and take different courses of development at the same time. The idea was for the Ghazni, Abdul Razak, one, we had the idea of the Islamic Museum. On the other hand, we had the view of educating children and youth, and so that it should come with different sorts of objectives. And it's funny because I was in Raj Al Alma in Saudi Arabia just last week, and I found that a book very similar to this. That's why I thought, because they were indeed doing that in the village there, and I thought, wonderful. It reminded me exactly of the project there. And another important, let's say, tool to advance and advocate for culture is, as a pillar of development, is indeed the method of World Heritage. And the first slide had the Minaret of Jam, which is a World Heritage property since 2002, and this is the a photo of Bamiyan. Which became a World Heritage property in 2003, and this is great tools of advocacy for the continued development of the site. I'm going quickly through these slides, but the point is there's much there that to be saved. Sometimes people who haven't been to the place think that it's been all destroyed or whatnot, and I think it's one of the most magnificent places you can visit, actually, and it still has so much heritage there, as well as it's just beautiful natural landscape. And the map here just shows you the extent of the World Heritage property, and people live in the World Heritage property, and all throughout the valley that you see there, the pink and red parts are the buffer zones and core zones of the World Heritage property, but the green is agricultural land and where people are living. Again, same thing. In terms of cultural spaces, this site is the site of Shari Gurgala, which is in the Bamiyan Valley and a World Heritage property, part of the World Heritage property. This faces many critical issues. It was had landmines in the site, the question of thousands of buildings. It was a city. It was originally, during the Buddhist period, it was occupied as a city, and it had been used in successive Islamic periods as well. Famously, Genghis Khan destroyed the city. His nephew is supposed to be killed at this site. In any case, this was a place of high prominence in the valley, and we wanted to try and advocate for some kind of reuse of the site. It's an archaeological site and it's an archaeological city, but nonetheless, we thought with so many buildings and wanting to do as much of a conservation intervention as we could, and to give it that purpose and meaning in the society. So we tried to, still this is ongoing, but the point is the building that's in the foreground there, this building G20, it's only actually been built in 1950 or something. It's not a building of antiquity, and it was used for. It's not clear exactly what it was built and used for at that time, but it's a recent building. It's not part of the archaeological site, but it's on top of the archaeological site. So we chose that as a good building to renovate, in a sense, because it could be used as a visitor centre and a location, a place where people could orient themselves from the site, and with 8 sites in the whole Bamiyan Valley, it can be. The idea had come that having some sort of museum or some sort of cultural centre in the heart of the valley that could have, like a wagon wheel, spokes that led to the other 8 properties, and this we started there rather than with the property rather than the culture centre. So I move on quickly. I guess the time is short.
Okay, maybe we can open the discussion soon.
Yes,
okay.
Otherwise we do that directly after Nu's presentation.
All right. I just wanted to say then finally that we, luckily enough, have a cooperation, Ministry of Culture, UNESCO and the government of South Korea in order to construct a new culture centre in the Bamiyan Valley. And that's what these slides relate to, and of course trying to embody all of these different aspects of the culture of the valley and of the Hazarajat region and so on in somehow this culture centre having multiple functions and not just as a museum space for indeed artefacts, but with some other function. And at the end of this, there is a 2-minute video. That's the jury. The announcement of the winning. The winning design is coming in about a couple of weeks in Kabul, and that will be hopefully there'll be a wonderful design that wins. And I'll just play the video because I think maybe not many people have been to the Bamiyan Valley, and it might be interesting to get some different feel.
A globally unique challenge. The crossroads of so many different cultures for centuries. Bamiyan has tremendous potential. The sheer beauty of the landscape, its soaring power, the mysteries and cultures of ancient times, a very special place. On a site approximately 26,000 square meters, UNESCO and Afghanistan, with the financial support of the Korean government, will create a cultural center for Bamiyan to respond to the people's needs. The view from the Bamiyan Cultural Center site overlooks the Hindu Kush mountain range and embraces the Bamiyan cliffs and the 2 empty niches where the Buddha statues once stood, tragically destroyed in 2001. The building will focus on the artistic and cultural process. It'll create a centre for community interaction. While drawing on traditional methods of construction and using locally sourced materials, the designer will need to create an innovative and inspirational design. The project will stimulate the local engineering and construction industries, contribute to local employment, and build regional capacity.
برای همین وقتی من به بامیان میرم یک احساس آزادی خیلی خاصی میکنم، خاطر اینکه من بتونم به عنوان یک خانم یک حق داشته باشم که بتونم را آزادانه برم بگردم و از جاهایی که واقعا بامیان داره استفاده کنم.
یک انسان هستیم و یک عادت و خاصیت و کدام تفاوت بین خارجی و فرد مثال افغانان نیست. کل ما انسان هستیم.
A major architectural and cultural opportunity, a lasting legacy for the people of Bamiyan and Afghanistan.
Our last speaker tonight is Nur Agha. Nur Agha is the chief curator of the National Museum. We listened to him already in this afternoon. And I'm really glad that he's here with us because he belongs to the generation taking care of our culture heritage in the future. And I strongly believe that we have to listen to this generation, that we have to give them the floor and that we have to support them. Now we'll talk about the exhibition projects at the National Museum.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. It is such a pleasure for me that have be among such great scholars like here. And it's also another great pleasure for me that I am talking to you, as though I'm very new in this, my career is in the very beginning, so it's a great pleasure for me. As Dr. Masoodi talked about it, and introduced the National Museum, and the National Museum after war and conflict, it was reopened in 2004 for the public, and many steps have been taken in the restoration and the organizing of new exhibition at the museum. That is permanent and the temporary exhibition, and some exhibition was started. The international exhibition that Mr. Masoodi talked about, that was the Hidden Treasure or the Bactrian Treasure exhibition, which is a world tour exhibition, which is currently in Australia, and maybe we'll go to the other countries. So here I would like to talk about the exhibition that we have in the museum, but before I will also talk about the exhibition at the museum, and also how we can attract the visitors and how it is increased, how we can increase the level of visitors at the museum. So there are 5 questions that we have to address before targeting the visitors. First, we have to know what is a visitor attentions, and I will answer this question as well. And what are the possible elements of a comprehensive definition of visitor attentions? The second question is, to what do visitors pay attention while they're visiting or viewing the exhibitions? How do visitors distribute their attention in exhibit environments, and what factors are effective in capturing attention? So I will also talk about what are the factors that can attract the visitors' attentions, and what are the factors that can influence the visitor attention while they are visiting the exhibitions. The third question is, how do the process or mechanism that explain visitor attention work? Process such as searching or scanning the exhibit environment and making choice about where to focus and engage attention need to be understood if we are to design experience that adequately manage visitor attentions. The fifth question is, what factors interfere? So these are the questions that we have to address. First, I will just talk about that. The visitor attention is a group of psychological and physiological processes that involve a continuum of 3 stages: capture, focus, and engage. With each stage sensitive to a unique combination of independent variables. And I will also tell you that what are these dependent variables. Dependent variables are approaching to an object and stopping or viewing the objects and reading the small captions that are just under that object, or the big banners, the labels that is inside that exhibitions. And thinking about that object is also a factor that can, and learning and writing skills and other like the independent variables that can attract the visitor attentions. And the personal factors included personal values, interest, past experience, etc. The environmental factors are included social influences, architectural, and exhibit design. So the exhibit designs are also a key element of that to attract the visitors. And psychological and physiological factors are perceptual, cognitive, affective decision making of the visitors. So there are some other factors that can interrupt or they can influence the capture of attention of a visitor. Like stimulus silence or distinctiveness, visual and physical access, organization or layout of the exhibition is also a key as a factor to influence the capture of the attention of visitors, and perceived value, that is potential utility divided by cost. Now here I would like that we have 5 permanent and 1 temporary exhibition at the National Museum. The first is that the ethnographic exhibitions. The ethnographic exhibition is, as you know, in Afghanistan we have different ethnic groups like Pashtun, Hazara, Tajiks, Turkmens, and so on. And at the National Museum in this exhibition, these people have different cultures and different living cultures, and their customs are different, and their dresses are different, their jewelries and everything is different from each other. There is a little bit similarities between them, but mostly they are different from each other, and they are living in same places, but in different provinces. So in this exhibition, we represented the jewelries, the dresses, everything in this exhibition of different ethnic groups like Pashtun, Hazara, Tajiks, and so on. The other exhibition is like the Islamic exhibition. This mostly we call this as the Ghazni exhibition, because the objects in this exhibition are totally from the Ghazni province of Afghanistan, and it is mostly excavated by the Italian archaeological mission to Afghanistan. And this is a temporary exhibition, and we recently opened this on the occasion when the Ghazni was the cultural capital of Islamic civilization announced by the UNESCO in 2013. So, and you can see here, and we are going to, this is a temporary exhibition, and we will make another Islamic exhibition in place of this in near future. Another exhibition, that is the return artifacts of Afghanistan. During this internal conflicts, mostly, as Dr. Masoodi also mentioned, that we have lost more than 70% objects. And after 2004, the return, many steps have been taken to return these artifacts from different countries. And almost from 2005 and almost from 2005, we had more than 10,000 objects from different countries like America, Sweden, Norway, UK, and so on, returned to the National Museum. And we display these objects in this exhibition, but it's also a temporary exhibition. We are going in next year to make this exhibition, to renovate this exhibition, and it's just a few objects are displayed in this exhibition, but we would like to replace this with some new objects that is recently returned from other countries. This is Mes Aynak exhibition, as Umar Sultan talked about Mes Aynak and Mr. Masoodi as well. Mes Aynak is a very rich archaeological site that is located just 30-35 kilometers from Kabul, and it's currently from 2009 the excavation is going on in this site, and many artifacts have been collected from this site. It belongs to the Buddhist period. Many stupas, monasteries, and the other religious houses also have been unearthed from this site, and the objects was shifted to the National Museum because we don't have any site museum there, and the object is coming to the National Museum, and then we put this object to the in the display in this exhibition hall. And this object from this exhibition will be go to the next year to the Czech Republic, because it will be also like we have another exhibition that is the Bactrian trio that is currently on the world tour. This exhibition will be like a world tour exhibition, will going to Czech Republic next year. This is the Buddhist heritage of Afghanistan. This is a very special exhibition that we have made in 2012, I think, with the financial support of CIE. So it's a very effective and very exhibition in a very modern style. So it's mainly this, the object displays in the display in this exhibition totally belongs to the Buddhist period. As you know, Afghanistan, especially the Kabul, Kapisa, Kandahar, and Jalalabad, these were the main part of Gandhara, and the Gandhara art was emerged here in these provinces, and we have a lot of Buddhist sculptures, and we represented in this Buddhist heritage exhibition. You can see here the display from different sites. The last exhibition, that is 1,000 Cities of Bactria, as Mr. Masoodi told about this recently in 2013 we opened this, and it is also supported by the financial support of CIE, which is also a very unique exhibition, and The object in this exhibition is totally from the north of Afghanistan, that is from Stone Age till the Kushan or Islamic period. So we have, like this, you can see Stone Age object and Buddhist period object as well. This is the last thing that I would like to share with you, that I have just, you can see the difference between the visitors in 2012, 2013, and 2014. That because we have taken in 2014, we have taken many steps like the educational programs for the school children. So this can affect, you can see, and this new exhibition in 2013 and 12, you can see how this affect the involvement of visitors. As you can see here in school children, we had in 2014, we had 13,000. University students, we had 1,500. Foreigners, we had 950. And VIP guests, like these VIP guests include the foreigners and the local, like some ambassadors and some other person coming to visit the museum, and the parliamentarian, Afghan parliamentarian are also visiting. So they are including the VIP guests. So the total was 29,380. In 2014, this amount is just increasing 30,000 almost. In 2014, you can see the difference, 44,960. So, and school children, you can see 22,000 school children have been visited in this year. And so, also the number of local visitors also increased in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the things that if Shanna allows me to kick off this, what I find the most impressive thing about the exhibition program that we started with the young generation is that you choose for the subjects. And the first subject that they choose for the first exhibition that we supported was the Buddhist past of Afghanistan. And I was surprised why that was the choice. And I remember the answer was to, if we want to really unite Afghanistan, then we have to be inclusive, all the history of our Afghanistan. And after that, the 1,000 cities of Bactria, it's really a good example of how the museum can work inclusive.
Thank you very much. It's been very interesting and very exciting, all the points of view, because it's in first person, most of the things you have talked about, and I think this is maybe the best way of making heritage alive, is really if it concerns individuals and personal lives of people. When you were saying, sorry, that Afghanistan should be inclusive of the cultures involved in its history, and this is a way of keeping peace. Could you say the variety of the number of those cultures that should be included?
Yeah. I would like to address the question to Omar Sultan, who is involved in that process for many years.
I don't know if you call a variety of cultures. There is one culture that you respect everything in the past. If it was Buddhism, if it was Hellenistic, or if it was Zoroastrian, or if it is Islam. We are Muslims. In Afghanistan, when before the war, before all these, with the Russians, war of Russia, we always believed that we are Muslim, we have to respect to the other religions as well. So one of the Buddhism exhibition, and I remember it very well, that the minister says, for me, in order to, you might think that I'm showing or I'm exhibiting the Buddhism culture, but you have to respect all these other cultures that you're talking or that you're seeing, that it was we don't know where my grandfather came, but it still was part of my culture, so that I have to support and respect that. Thank you.
But I mean, what I mean exactly, like in the beginning, Mr. Omar Sultan was talking about the spirit of reconciliation and forgiveness that we need in this moment of time after the conflict. And I'm wondering if there could be a space for representing the conflict itself and what happened in the last 3 decades pertaining to that conflict in national museums. And then, I mean, everybody, this question is open for anyone to.
Yeah, actually, for the conflict, we are just a few months ago. We had a workshop, and one American lady was there, and we are working on a peace museum in Kabul. We had discussed this idea of a different organization to make a peace museum, and we can display this the recent past, like 30 years or 40 years war in Afghanistan. We can represent what war effect in our countries. We can, in the pictographic form, are the families who are influenced by this war, and their family members are died during the war. So we can represent the stories of those families. So we are working on this to make a peace museum in the Kabul as well.
I just happen to know that, for instance, one of the Taliban is now working in one of the museums. He used to be a Taliban, and now he's working, I think, in the garden, and he changed his. Like there are real people who live in real places who change work and positions. But I would like you, Noor, to tell about the card games, the concrete things you have done with the children.
There is. In 2014, why we focused on the school children or the children, it was just an idea in my mind was that you know, in Afghanistan, mainly the people are illiterate, the elder people are illiterate, and they didn't went to the university, especially just after 10 or maybe after 8th grade, they didn't went to the universities and the colleges. So we just focus on school children, because if we guide the school children, and then they can go to their house, and they can change the idea of their families to their parents, and then they can attract these people to come to the museum. And if we went directly to that families and directly talk to that parents of their children, so it's very hard to attract them or to change their minds. So that's why we are focused on the school children.
The project Umayya is referring to was how do you make heritage relevant for school kids? And by just saying, well, this is a museum, this is where you're going to look at, and this is important, that is one side of making sure that school kids and the younger generation is informed about their rich culture. But what the team of curators and our Afghanistan partner did was designing a memory game, so that they actually, there was a selection of heritage sites around their city, and though actually they could play a game with sites of importance that they identified themselves, and that was a really important part of the educational program. Thank you.
May I make a comment? Sorry.
Should I?
Omar, Professor Gala would like to ask another question.
Yeah, just make a comment, and then because of children. I have been asked by President of Afghanistan that this book, The Treasure of Afghanistan, which has been in English and Farsi, it's too big, that I have to go and write it with the children language, because, and it's going to be small. He's going to go and put it in the school curriculum to teach them the culture heritage. So that's a great news for us.
Wonderful.